Hey there. Today I have Dan Sullivan. He's back for another conversation. He's the co-founder of Strategic Coach, which is a leading entrepreneurial coaching program in the world. He's written at least 50, if not more, books, publications on entrepreneurial success. 30 plus years, a Strategic Coach has provided teaching and training for more than 20,000 entrepreneurs. If not, he's top 25,000, my personal opinion. He is a co-founder of Strategic Coach and is the world's foremost expert on entrepreneurship. Hey, Dan Sullivan, thanks for joining us again.
Andre, always a pleasure.
You just came out, last time you were on, we talked about The Gap and the Gain. This is a book that you and Benjamin Hardy wrote together. And this time here, it's called 10X is easier than 2X. What do you mean by 10X?
10 times. This is the third book that I've written with Ben, and the way it is, these are strategic coach ideas, and Ben approached us and asked if we were going to ever do major market books.
Right.
And Ben was a top writer. As a matter of fact, he was the top writer on Medium, the blog platform. And he's a very good writer. I mean, he's got a great writer. I have a particular style of writing that's geared directly to our entrepreneurial clients. So, I really know how our clients think about things. I really know how they like to have information presented to them, but it tends to be a little bit too crisp, too focused, and I don't waste a lot of time on stories and research and everything else. And it's a particular writing style that I've discovered, and it's the second person personal. And very few people can write in the second person personal. I'll get back to your question about 10 times is easier than 2 times, but I wanted to explain it. And the second person personal is where you're always talking directly to the reader, and you're using the word you. So you think about things this way. And you can only get away with this type of writing if you really, really know who the reader is, okay? And what that dispenses with is I don't have to give any kind of research. I don't have to give any kind of footnotes. I don't have to tell a lot of stories and anything else, because the story I'm describing is the reader's story. And I'm saying, this is how you experience, these are your frustrations, this is what really motivates you. And I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm really good at it, but that's not what passes in the marketplace for a major market book. You have to have, lots of references to other experts. You have to have a lot of research. You got to give lots and lots of anecdotal stories and everything else. And I'm ADD enough that that really is not my type of project.
I was going to say that sounds like for an eternity to write a big book like that.
Yeah, it's a and I have about a 90-day limit on how long I can stay with any kind of project, not just book projects. So all my projects, the books are finished in 90. They're conceived, they're developed, they're executed, and they're published in 90 days. And I've done that when I was 70, so I'm going on 79 right now. But when I was 70, I said, I'm going to, in the next 25 years, which is 100 quarters, I'm going to write 100 small books. So this is the end of quarter number 34, and we have the 34th book. It'll be going to press in about a month. So that was just a background on
but I want to expand on that a bit.
Why Ben is the writer on the book, not me, is Ben just loves writing books, and he loves working with the publisher. He loves working with the agents. He loves interviewing, and most of the interviews are with strategic coach clients who've taken the concepts 10 times. So I'll come back to the 10 times. question that you asked me. What
Yeah,
it
before
means.
you get on that, I just wanted to expand for the listeners here what Dan explained about his 90-day cycle, project cycle, as you figured out a long time ago. After 90 days, you're no longer interested.
I have no more gas in the tank.
Right, and that's interest. So that's the way you overcame your ADHD. You understood your ADHD brain or ADD brain on how to stay motivated and interested by keeping it 90 days and not longer. And that's how you got Ben involved. Is he can play that long game.
Yeah.
And in a way, there's a 10x step for you. So a good segue into that.
Yeah. But so we did a deal, and the deal was Ben had an agent and he had a publisher, and but he so he said, I'd be happy to be co-author with the book, and I said, well, the deal for me would be that all the money that comes from the book is your money. So the advances, the royalties, and everything, that's your money. And I'll be happy for you to interview me, and I'd be Zoom. We did it all by Zoom for the most part. And I said, and anything that you want to go deeper with in terms of the ideas. So the books are about strategic coach ideas. And the first one was Who, Not How. And the second one was The Gap and the Gain. And these are very, very powerful concepts in the strategic coach program. But the third one was 10 times is easier than 2 times. And that's a very central concept in strategic coach. And the first 2 were really, really successful. I mean, together they've sold about 500,000 books, the first 2 books, and they're steady sellers. I mean, even the first one 3 years out, it's still selling at thousands of books per week, because they're books where people read them and then they recommend them and buy them for friends and associates. It's called a self-selling book, and it's like a self-milking cow, and it just keeps going. But this 10 times one packs a lot of coach concepts in it. So the whole point is that if you can normalize the notion that your next jump as an entrepreneur is going to be 10 times, and you can think about all the factors that would contribute to getting a 10 times result, then you can actually achieve that. And in fact, what you're going to find that it's easier to go 10 times than if you're just trying to go 2 times. And the reason I've 2 times, you're kind of rearranging the office furniture.
Right.
But if you're going to 10 times, you can't keep doing a lot of the stuff that you're doing. You really have to, you may require higher level staff. You may have to require, you have to up your game. You have to be operating in different circles, and you have to probably upgrade your clients and customers and the value that you're creating. But it's very stimulating because you're being directed from the future rather than 2 times you're trying to drag 90% of what you've done in the past into the future. And we've discovered, I've discovered, this is my 49th year of coaching entrepreneurs, and the program that you're a part of, Andre, is in its 34th year. And we've just discovered that 10 times makes entrepreneurs more lightweight than 2 times.
Lightweight in work.
Yeah.
So
lightweight in their whole life.
Oh, it's transformational. So with the 2x mindset, you're just working harder to go 2 times.
You say, I'll just work 10 hours longer per week, or and
then with the 10x, it's actually a mindset shift in the way how you do things, because
you have to actually work less to go 10 times.
And what do you mean by that, by working less? I think because we hear that a lot all the time, and
fewer hours, fewer days,
and types of tasks.
There like there's about three things I'm really good at. I am good at coaching. The other thing is I'm good at coming up with new coaching ideas and concepts for the program. And I'm good at almost anything that takes place in the front stage.
Right.
You know, you don't want Dan working in the backstage. I'm not good at details. I'm not good at, I'm not good at follow through. But I'm really good at anything that's a presentation, anything that's, puts on a show. I'm good at that.
So like a lot of the ADHD entrepreneurs, we've been, trying to follow other people's measuring sticks, trying to fit in and follow the normalized way of doing work, show up, do stuff. And the other misnomer is entrepreneurs have to do everything. And now you just told me I'm supposed to work fewer hours and fewer days.
And do fewer activities, and only do them with certain of your clientele. Don't be working with all your clientele.
So you're saying to be a little more strategic on stuff, because like to me, if you're telling me to work fewer hours and fewer days, then how am I going to make 10 times more revenue and 10 times more impact? Because you're not only talking revenue here or personal income here, it could be impact, purpose, and your freedoms of time, your four freedoms of time, money, relationship, and purpose.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, a lot of entrepreneurs get sort of hardwired right at the beginning of their career. And when I think 1974 is the first year that I was an entrepreneur. And so I'll just talk about the first 3 years, 74 to 77. And, I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I had the confidence to jump out into the marketplace, but there was so much about, marketing and following through and time management and business cycles and cash flow cycles and everything else that I didn't really know. And so the way you compensate for your lack of knowledge and your lack of skill is that you put in longer hours. So our notion of free day, I don't think I had a single free day in the first 3 years of being an entrepreneur. I mean, Saturdays, Sundays, late at night, you worked. And I'm not sure there's any substitute for that. I don't think you can be doing something new and start out smart about that thing. I think you just have to be through two or three, probably three business cycles, and you're starting to get a sense that there's a time for planting, there's a time for growing, there's a time for harvesting. And, and the other thing is that you mentioned this right at the beginning of our conversation here, is to find out what your time cycles are. And what I find is that I have a 90-day time cycle. I can get revved up and I have staying power for 90 days, but there's a sharp drop off at the 90 days. If I'm not seeing significant measurable results at the end of 90 days, then I'm not going to finish it.
So what kind of pitfalls, before we go there, like to think 10X versus 2X, we have to look at something different. It's not just, what is that different thing? Like it's a different set of goals because it's a different set of effort, different kind of effort.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you look at something that the vast majority of entrepreneurs never look at, and that's your past. Because, I mean, if you're a brand new entrepreneur, what I'm going to say may not be for you, but if you've been out there, for decades, there was a time in the past where you were only doing 1/10 of what you're doing now, and let's just use revenues as an example. Okay. So with us, we just, last year as a company, we didn't have our best top line, in terms of gross revenues. Okay. So that was the year before COVID. Right. And we, like everybody else, we took a hit during COVID, and we lost about 40% of our revenues in the first year. So we were at about 40 million for the company, and we dropped down to 24 million. So we lost 40%, but we weren't in a loss situation. We were just dead even in terms at 24 million. Then the next year we went back up to 32, and the last year we went up to 39. But our profits were a lot higher with 39 million than they were with 40 million. And the reason is that 20% of our business is now virtual, worldwide virtual. And it's much more profitable. Virtual is much, because we charge exactly the same money for the virtual program as we do the in-person program. Okay, and so you don't have travel as an expense, you don't have food as an expense, you don't have, the costs of the space. Okay, and it's really fast. The workshops aren't as long and everything else. So there's an enormous number of issues. So that's about 20%. And my sense is going forward, the virtual part of our business is going to inch up because we can market, right around the planet right now. And so there's a lot of advantages, and we were forced into that. I mean, we wouldn't have chosen it. If COVID hadn't happened, I don't know when we would have ever gotten to a virtual version of our program, but you don't control the world and what happens in the world, and sometimes you have to adjust very quickly, and we did. And but when we were 1/10, I'll just use 40 million as a number. When we were 4 million, it was probably around I would say right around 2000 we were at 4 million. Okay, so we've gone from 4 million in the year 2000 to 22 years, let's say, just use the number, we've gone 10 times over 22 years, okay? And there's been growth of everything, but there's a few things that facilitated that, and that is that we actually have right from the beginning, from very, very year one, we've driven our business with two fundamental concepts, and one of them is you guarantee free time for everybody right at the beginning of the year. And so in 1989, Babs and I took 22 weeks of free time off in that year. And last year and this year we're taking off 22 weeks. So on January 1st, we take 22 weeks off the calendar, okay? Which in days, we have 155 days. That works out to 155 days. So you subtract that from 365, and there's 210 work days that we have available every year. And that's been constant for Babs and me. Babs is my
the co-founder
in life, and my partner in the business. And we take that off, and we account for which weeks and where the free days is going to come in the schedule and everything else. So it's like in financial advising, if your savings don't come off the top, there are no savings.
Right.
The same thing with time management. If the free time doesn't come off the top, there are no free days.
So if we're taking more time off, like 155 days here, the immediate thing that comes to mind is, holy crap, how are things going to get done?
Yeah, well, you got to get bigger checks.
Yeah, well, that's one. But your team has to also do something, and you, as the entrepreneur, you have to shave off a bunch of tasks. And
that's our second concept, which is called unique ability.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I'm no good at management, so I have no management responsibilities in the company at all, except managing the creation of new ideas for the program. Okay, and so every quarter I've got brand new ideas for clients, and I've got clients who've been the longest continuous client is July of 1987. So in this coming July, it'll be 36 years. I've seen every quarter for 36 years. And so every quarter he's seen me, I've got new ideas, that allow him to gain greater freedom of time, greater freedom of money, greater freedom of relationship and purpose, the four freedoms. But back to your question, what allows you to get more done with 210 days each year is that every year I shave off things that Dan shouldn't be using. Okay, and Babs shaves off things that Babs shouldn't be doing. Okay, but we also, our commitment to our team is that, first of all, you get a lot of free time.
Yeah.
So all of our team members, and we have team members who just joined us within the last 6 months, and we have team members who are now in their 32nd year of being with us, and they all get the same amount of free time. So when someone is hired, there's a 3-month trial, and we're in 3 countries, and there's 3 months in the United States, 3 months in UK, 3 months in Canada. So the rules are the same there, where you can just fire someone without cause. You do that. But once that person passes the 3-month mark in the first 12 months after they pass the 3-month trial, they get 5 weeks of free days. Okay, these are vacation days. Plus, they get 10 statutory holidays. So that's 40 days. We don't ask them to work on weekends, so that's 104 days. So now we're up to 144 days that they get off. And then everybody has 3 days that we will pay for free to work on some community project that they may be interested. So it's 140. So Babs and I get 155 free days, and our team members get 147. So ours is 22 weeks and theirs is 21 weeks.
And your logic, go ahead.
But there's a kicker here. You can't go take your free days until someone is double trained on your job.
Right.
So the giving them that amount of free days got some benefits. They don't get burned out. Secondly, they have a life outside the company.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't ask them to work beyond normal work hours, 9 to 5. And if they have to work on a weekend, and sometimes it's necessary for events like trade shows, they might have to be there in a marketing capacity. And so if they work both days during the week, then during the weekdays, they can take 2 weekdays off as compensation for that. So and we find that people, and then we say our commitment is, as we go along, first year you're going to have to do a lot of things that we just need getting done. But starting in your second year, we're going to start saying, okay, what do you really love doing? And we're going to allow you to not do certain things and just focus on what you love doing. And the reason is that if somebody is motivated by the work they're doing, they don't really need to be managed that much.
Correct. Yeah. And then with your concept with the free days, the time you have to take time off so you can rejuvenate in order to maintain your creativity versus banking the time and get the reward of time off at the end of the week. Right.
Yeah.
So
or at the end of your work life.
Yeah. The big R word.
And the other thing is you can't carry your days over from one year to the next. We don't allow them to carry over.
Right.
So they can't bank, and we'll just tell people if they get to December and they haven't taken your free days, you're going to have to take a whack of So some people, we allow it to go into January, but not much. And part of the reason is that we know something that they're not doing. They're not double training another person to do their job.
Right. So then no one's really getting threatened by having someone else know their job. It's just that's the way it works. And in order for you to 10x, it sounds like get everyone on your team to work within their unique ability. Everyone takes the time off.
Yeah.
And the 10Xing is actually more, are we focusing more on what we do best and getting rid of everything else?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it has to fit within the framework of the company's mission. I mean, I mean, the thing that they're really good at may lie outside of strategic coach.
Mm-hmm.
And but I am very, very alert to that and said, as long as, your purposes in life and our purposes in life are parallel to each other, this is going to work. But, but if there's something else that to truly be in your unique ability, what we call your unique ability, that if there's something that's going to be outside the company, then let's talk about it immediately and start establishing some deadlines, because if you're constantly drawn to something outside the company, it's going to affect your work inside the company.
Yeah.
And and it just may be that the thing that you really want to do isn't within the framework of the company. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
one last question before we go here. Like, you've done this in the past too yourself. You've gotten better with time. But a lot of ADHD entrepreneurs, we get overwhelmed very easily because we like to take a lot on. And the first thing that's coming.
Don't do that.
But that's the first thing that's coming to mind. 10X growth. The brain can go anywhere a million.
Yeah, well,
different ways.
Can I tell you the problem with ADD people?
Yeah, go for it.
It's not the goal that drives them crazy. It's the deadlines that drive them crazy. Okay. Now I'll give you an example. So I have an example. This actually happened. So I'm just going to repeat here what happened. I said, what's your income right now?
Mm-hmm.
And, it was like $2.5 million, whatever the form that came in. And I said, so I want you to multiply by 10. That's 25 million.
Right.
Okay. And I could see they were excited for about 5 seconds. And then they said, but I can't do 10 times in 3 years. And I said, I didn't say anything about 3 years. Their mind immediately say, I have to do this in 3 years. Well, why do they do that?
Yeah, not too sure.
Why do they do that?
Well, we want to do it as quickly as possible.
Is that it?
Yeah, the ADHD brain just wants to get going, because I think with our lack of inhibition and time blindness, we want to get it done quickly and as fast as possible. So, and that's the only way to keep us.
Here's what I think is that having impossible goals actually gives you a dopamine hit.
Right, because it creates urgency. It makes it interesting, makes it challenging, makes it novel, and that's one way that keeps the brain, ADHD brain, focused and going. And if we don't create that, it's very hard to get into focus mode to do it. Or I find that's a good way we get into hyper focus, is one of those.
Yeah, but the thing is that it may be good for you, but it's not good for the people who are working with you.
Agreed. And it's also not good for us because it's undue pressure and stress for no reason.
Yeah.
And then we start working a lot of hours, too long, doing stuff we're not supposed to.
Yeah. So anyway, this person, I'm going to continue with the story here.
Yeah.
So the person said, well, I didn't say anything about 3 years. I said, I'm going to give you 25 years to do it.
Right.
In other words, you go 10 times in 25 years. So you're at 2.5 million. And you go to 25 million in 25 years. Mm-hmm. And they said, 25 years? I don't need 25 years to do 10 times. And I said, really, how long do you need? And he said, well, I can do it in 15 years. I said, wow, well, what would you do with the extra 10 years then? And he said, I'd do it again. I said, wow, we started this conversation with 10 times and you couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. But now we're talking about 100 times, because 2 times 10 is, if you do 10 times twice, it's 100 times. And I said to it, and they said, oh, wow, but I've taken away their drug.
Right.
And they don't like that. They don't want their drug taken away. And because they want their business goals to supply their therapy, and they want their business goals to provide them with their medication, and everything else. And I said, why don't you get some help with your ADD without using the business structures and using business relationships to deal with your ADD? Okay, so for example, I'm constantly doing work, brain work, and and I'm chemically enhanced with Adderall and everything else. But that's my problem. So I don't want to make my particular problem my business model.
Right. Right. And I think you got a great point there that it's the deadlines that drives the ADHD brain, that drives them mad, and it's not the goals. And if you twist that, or you reframe your 10x growth and your 10x goals as, giving yourself 25 years, which we'll all achieve a lot quicker, but gives us less pressure. And like you said before, like understanding how, understand your time cycles to maintain interest, and where you can delegate the rest off. Like your 90 days, me, it's 2 weeks. Projects longer than 2 weeks takes forever, and I really can't get them done. So, but I figure out the main problems. I got the rest of my team to finish up the paperwork, the drawings, and the report. The goals, and I think there's another issue here, is I think that gets us overwhelmed, is we always think we have to do it. But use the team and everyone's unique ability. Take the time off the free days and use other people's unique abilities, which are not your unique abilities, which are your unique weaknesses. Then everyone succeeds and has fun and a good time.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that entrepreneurs often hire and delegate people who are not as good as they are. Okay. And I don't. I'm surrounded by a team of project managers who are far, far better than I am. Okay. Right. They have organizational skills that I don't have, and they have, capacity for dealing with great detail that I don't have available to me. And so I'm just one team member in a like a 7-person team, and I have a particular specialty. I don't think anyone can start new things better in the entire company. I don't think there's anybody in my entire company. We have 130 team members, not including Babs and me. We have 130, and there's nobody in that 130 who can start new things, get new things packaged, get new things presented in the program than I am. I'm just the best you want. So one of the goals that Babs has is always being free, always free up Dan to be creating new stuff.
Right.
And have Dan always in situations where he's presenting the new stuff and is getting fresh material from the strategic coach clients to create new stuff for the next quarter. And get him to bed at around 9 o'clock in the morning, and get him enough sleep that he gets a 90 on his Oura ring.
Right. Any last words about growing 10x, and why should the entrepreneur be achieving the 10x growth rather than 2x?
Well, the other thing, there's a lot of different things that you can do 10x with. You can 10x more. So we have, I mean, when I talk about free time, I have 10 times more free time than almost any entrepreneur I know. And what I mean by a free day is that when I'm on a free day, I don't do any work. I read fiction novels. I'm a history junkie. I'm reading history books. I gave up television 5 years ago, and it's gave me about 800 hours back a year. I haven't watched any television. There's great internet sites that have great articles that bring you up to date. And so I haven't watched, so every year I find some activity that I'm doing that probably if I stop doing it, I'd get back 50 to 100 hours. And then that I don't need those for free time, because the free time is locked in. So there's new projects I can entertain, but I have a limit on how many new projects I can start that are above and beyond the new things that are involved. So I have to get agreement with Babs and the main team leaders in the company that I won't start anything new, like a new program. I won't start anything new until next year. Next year. And I'll free up the time this year so that it's not a time pressure next year. So, a lot of ADD people think that they're the center of their universe. But I see myself as just a highly specialized team member in my own company, And so whenever I think of something, I give reference to, I give reference to how is this going to work with everybody else?
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily only an ADD thing. It's also, I think, it seems to be the way we were raised. If you're going to have your own business, you got to do everything. So to think it as like either, I guess traditionally it's be the center of the company that knows it all. But what you're trying to tell me, no, it's not trying to tell me, I know is what you coach and teach, and it's true, is you be the center of the company with your own unique ability and surround yourself with people with other unique abilities that support you.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody's the center of their own universe because they're the only person that they have direct access to, and they're the only one they're ultimately responsible for. But in terms of 130 person network, I'm just one of the skills. And, there's hundreds of other skills there. And
I like what you said here, that you limit the number of projects you start new. And I think that's another thing. It's definitely a good ADD structure that you created is before I create new, I have to either complete or finish whatever terms and conditions are to do something new. I guess someone told me that's like they had to start limiting or controlling their ambition. And I think that's a good way of seeing that is, I think I got to apply that to myself here too. I can't start anything new until part of the project list gets down to a certain amount of numbers. I think it's a really good advice for everyone.
So first of all, each of us is kind of unique in terms of how we've basically organized our life. And I think the more insight you have into things that, how you do things, and you reach agreement with other people that the way in which you do things is going to be respected. And you'll grant the same right to other people. I don't ask for any freedom that I don't grant to other people. I don't ask for any advantage. I'm talking just within my company. The outside world,
that's different. You can't control it.
Thing. I don't have any control over the outside world. So I do have control over things in the inside world, And I think that, the other thing is ADD, if looked at as an advantage, but the advantage should be sharply focused and sharply organized for certain situations, rather than an excuse of why you can't do everything else, an excuse about everything else. And I'm past the point where my ADD is an excuse for anything. My ADD is a particular advantage that we should channel but within borders, and that you can't allow that advantage to bother other people. And
that's what I've always said is, create your boundaries and barriers. If we manage those, what they call symptoms, as long as they're managed, those are your strengths and your abilities.
But I don't feel particularly disadvantaged by it at all.
No.
As long as I gain greater and greater consciousness of just how this impacts, where is it really good for me to give full rein to this, and where is it?
I don't see it as any different than any other people's strengths or abilities.
No.
If they overuse them or underutilized, it's impeding everyone else at the same time. It's just the way that our brain works differently, and it's not normal. We're hunters. We're not farmers. We just want to go and get going. And understand that and awareness. And like you've done with strategic coach, you've structured the company to work around you, that you can have your ADD managed and utilized at its peak performance by continually looking at the unique ability, and your unique ability keeps refining itself every year.
Mhm.
So, and
Yeah.
I think that's also
Well,
part
it's
of the,
very interesting. I'll be 79 within a month of our podcast here.
Mhm.
And since I'm 70, I've been more productive, more creatively productive since I was 70 than I was before age 70. So in the 70 years before I was 70, I've equaled the creative production in the last 9 years.
So you've taken the same amount of time off before 70 and after. So
Mhm.
what's the big shift then?
Just working out the teamwork a lot better, and then taking a look at where's our most productive future as a company. And this is a conversation that Babs and I and the team members have, and just keep having everybody in the company get better and better at their own unique ability and their unique ability teamwork.
So
And
if you had a 2x mindset, 2 times mindset at 70,
you
what
wouldn't
would
have
it
done that. You would be retired because you'd be
be?
bored. You'd be bored silly.
Right.
You
So,
and a lot of people, since they never come to grips with their, since this is the audience that we're talking to, and this is the topic, they just never come to grips with their ADD. And what happens is that since they never come to grips at it, there's a point where they've lost their youthful energy,
yeah.
and it's just harder and harder for them to produce under the stressful conditions that they've basically hardwired into their life. So the only thing is, I've got to sell the business off, and I got to get out there and just have just total free time. And but I've watched people do that, and it doesn't seem to be any solution that I would seek out.
No, and I think that's the difference between someone who's got a scarcity mindset, a growth mindset. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs where they use the ADHD as it's crippling, it's a negative, and they use it as an excuse, not as an explanation to transform themselves. And for me, this unique ability stuff, it's transformational. So how to think, how can I do less by staying more in my unique ability? Almost, most of us will feel guilty giving up stuff, and we're feeling guilty, I think, because it's that stuff I really enjoy doing, and this is stuff I can do all day without losing energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong
Well,
with it, so you got to give yourself permission to
well,
say, hey.
the problem is an ADD. The problem is guilt.
Yeah.
I think I'll tell you, people who aren't ADD have the same problem.
Correct.
They just don't have the haphazardness that we tend to experience.
Yeah.
Bright, shiny things. They don't really experience that, but they hold on to things that they shouldn't hold on to either. So I don't think that's an ADD problem. I think that's a human problem. And people want to get to a point where they don't have to think anymore. People get to the point where they don't think they should have to improve anymore. And then their thinking becomes about what they have control of, that they're not going to give up control, and what kind of status they have, and they're not going to give up any of their status. And then they become a reactive obstacle, within their own company, and they're really bored. They're bored, but they're also really boring.
And boredom with the brain, the ADD brain, is not beneficial either. And like you say,
but what I'm saying is, it's a general.
Right.
I've seen just so many entrepreneurs who look like superstars in their 20s and 30s, and then by the time they're 50, they're a spent force, but they still have control over things, and they're making income, and they have wealth that they no longer justify, but they try to hold on to it, and then they become, they just become an obstacle. And I really have no aspirations to be an obstacle.
Yeah. And you've done that very well.
Thank
So
you.
in short, to gain the 10x mindset is actually focusing more on your unique abilities and taking time off,
Yeah.
sticking to the time off.
And then keep refining just who it is in the marketplace that you personally should be involved with.
Mm-hmm.
In coach, I just keep creating higher and higher levels
Yeah.
of the program, and this is my probably the people I'm dealing with now are really creative, collaborative transformers of whole industries.
Mm-hmm.
After almost 50 years, and they're just doing marvelous stuff. And that in itself, that I have a hand in that, really is very, very motivating.
Mm-hmm. And I think two last points that you made that was very good is be aware of your time cycles to maintain interest, and also that it's deadlines that drive ADHD brains crazy, not the goals. And I
No,
think a lot of us get stuck. It's actually the goals that's overwhelming, but it's actually the deadlines.
it's actually the deadlines. Yeah, they just keep creating impossible deadlines for
Yeah.
themselves, which is bad enough for them, but it's bad for everybody that works with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is fantastic. I think this discussion just did not really go where I thought it was going. And I thought it really brought out the importance on how to do the 10x growth without getting too technical. This was
Yeah.
all like the one thing I really got about this whole 10x concept when you brought it up 10, 15 years ago is it's a change of mindset and how you do things, not working harder
No,
and
but
focusing
it's
on your unique
actually doing a
abilities.
lot less.
Right.
It's just the opposite of doing more, and it's just the opposite of doing things longer.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually doing less things in a shorter, in
Yeah.
shorter periods. But the ultimate deadline, you got to be that the ultimate deadline is good for everybody whose talents are going to be required.
Right. And like
There's got to be an agreement on what's a reasonable deadline.
right. And you need the right team members on your team with the same goals and aspirations to achieve the 10x
Yeah.
mindset. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, I learned a lot too. I learned, that I'm going to utilize. First of all, we'd like to get a recording of this podcast that we can send out to.
Okay. Yep.
Gord can coordinate with you on that.
Yep.
And anyway, but this was for our purpose, this was a superb podcast.
Thank you. And again, this is the third book in the series with Ben Hardy.
Yeah.
10x is easier than 2x. It's very well laid out. Like, I really enjoy your ambition series books, your little 1 hour books. You're right. It is direct to the point, succinct. And the books with Ben Hardy, he goes a little more, a little broader.
Ben just operates at a writing level
Yeah.
that I couldn't even imagine how he gets to that level. I mean, that opening story about Michelangelo.
Yeah, I know. It was amazing.
And that was because he took 6 weeks of free day in Italy.
Yeah.
And, and he went around and saw all the sculptures, and then he read histories of Michelangelo and everything like that. But we brought in a sort of a book coach and a man by the name of Tucker Max. And because as it turns out, Ben's agent and publisher didn't want this book or any of the other books. So we found a publisher, Hay House, who had just made a decision within the previous 3 or 4 years that they started off as sort of a new age sort of publishing house about 30, 40 years ago. And they had decided that they were going to switch to an entrepreneurial market, the economy has really changed over 30 or 40 years. And they identified me and Strategic Coach as, if they could get that as sort of a flagship writer, that would be great for them. And so they were very open, and they're very supportive, and they're a great marketing publishing company. And they make life easy for you
Mm-hmm.
to work for them. So that was a real deal. And Tucker Max is the one who really set up the deal for us. And he gives Ben a lot of coaching. And writing this kind of book isn't an easy thing, you know.
No,
It would be an impossible thing for me, but Ben has really delivered fantastic results for
and
us.
then the way he writes it, here's the point, here's the concept, here's a supporting story, and here's a supporting science behind it, and then here's some actionable things to do to think about it. It's very well written, just like all three. And you can get this at the website online, or you can get access to.
Yeah, you go right to Amazon. You can go right to Amazon right now, and it's called 10 times is easier than 2 times, and we're, even the first 2 books are still in the top 2,500 books in the world out of 6 million that Amazon has. Our first 2 books, and they've been a great pleasant surprise for the publisher. They've not really had this kind of
success
before. Certainly not with a new writer to their to their company. And anyway, and it's a great trilogy. The 3 books together are actually they
do interweave very well.
They complement each other a lot.
And I think it was in the right order, personally. And the listener, you can go to the book website at 10xeasierbook.com. It'll all be in the show notes for the links, but you can get there's some free tools there and some little more description of the book and ways to order it and get it and purchase it. And I highly recommend it.
I would say this, that the audio book on this, that the actual material is twice as much material.
Oh, that's right.
As actually the text of the book. Because what Ben did the reading of the actual text, but then he would interview me separately. We had a recording session where we went through all the chapters, the intro and the chapters and the conclusion, and then he interviews me. So, and I just gave him a lot more new material. So the audio book has almost twice as much material as the actual written book,
and a little more profound, because with the answers you got a little more in-depth discussion. And I don't know if the listeners actually were hearing that's the last 10-15 minutes or so, everything that Dan was explaining about the book with the relationship with Ben Hardy is a 10x concept and project. He made it sound very, very easy, because it actually was. He stuck to his unique ability dealing with the concept. Ben stuck with his unique ability of writing this big market book, while Ben was using Tucker Max's unique ability by understanding how to write these books and how to.
And the publisher is unique. The publisher. So it was a wonderful unique ability collaboration.
And you all gave up control of each other's unique ability.
Well, we just do what none of us had to do anything except what we're really great at and what we enjoy doing. So that's really the key. And I don't ask people to do things that they're not good at, and they
and having that faith and trust is it's the only way it'll work. So, but you need that kind of mindset. You need to have that belief in yourself and understanding of the other people's unique abilities to make it work, and it is doable. So for you, the listener, does the concept of 10x scare you, or does it create excitement for you? I'd like to hear from you about this. And thanks again, Dan, for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about this new book. Last time we talked about the gap and the gain. And honestly, if you want more information about Strategic Coach, you can go to strategiccoach.com to learn more about the programs. I've been in it since 2011. It's a group of entrepreneurs that get together. We all experience the same things, and we're not told what to do. We're asked to think about our thinking, and we learn from each other.
Yeah, and I would say probably 60% of our total membership is on the ADD spectrum somewhere. Shows up in different ways for different people,
But it's definitely a community that you feel welcome, and we work together to help each other out. So thanks again for your time, Dan, and to you, the listeners. Thank you for listening. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.